video is going to be obviously about autoregulation, me just kind of briefly explaining it, and putting it into layman's terms, and just kind of going over how I go about training basically. I'm going to briefly touch on overtraining and overreaching, what the difference is. So what is autoregulation? This is just a generic definition that I stole from Google. It's a process within many biological systems resulting from an internal adaptive mechanism that works to adjust or mitigate that system's response to stimuli. And I know I'll kind of explain what that means a little bit. Why do I like using autoregulation? I like it because it allows me, every day that I lift, it allows me to lift heavy, very heavy, while certainly there's an acclimation period of getting used to the amount of volume and the amount, the frequency certainly. But for me, since I've kind of switched more so towards powerlifting, I'm going to try to make this video as quick as possible because I don't want to. When I originally tried to record this, it took 25 minutes, and that's just way too long. But anyway, the basic premise behind it is that for me, because I wanted to get better at the big three, bench, squat, bench, and deadlift, so I don't know, I was kind of looking at alternative methods towards, I guess, like more conventional programs, I guess you'd say. Well, I've been following Matt Perryman for a few years now, and he actually wrote a book called Squat Every Day. And Squat Every Day is more so a principle. That's just the title of the book, but it's more so a principle. And I would highly recommend that. Even if you don't care or you don't give a damn at all about autoregulation, it's a great resource to just learn. And it kind of turns your thoughts, your initial thoughts on overtraining upside down, basically. But yeah, so it's built upon training maxes with the big three, or certainly you could do it with other things, but for me, because I want to compete in powerlifting sometime in 2015, probably like April or May, that's what I'm going to go with. So it's built upon training maxes. Playing with intensity it's crucial because you have to know when to turn it on, when to kind of, throttle back a little bit. As I said, it's high frequency, high volume, and as you see at the bottom there, this is not for everyone, certainly. Why do I enjoy using it? As I alluded to earlier, I like lifting heavy. I don't know, I just think it's fun. For me, it's I don't know, just there's a certain kind of test that I guess comes with seeing what you're truly capable of in terms of lifting heavy, and I kind of like that. But yeah, it allows me the opportunity to train with a higher percentage of my 1 rep max more often, as opposed to different approaches towards powerlifting, like maybe Shiko, where the highest you ever lift, unless you're maxing out or you're testing, really you only go to like 80-85% of your 1 rep max. So yeah, there at the bottom, basically it's more volume plus frequency with the higher load that is closer to your 1 rep max for the big three. So what is a training max? I'm going to try to explain this as best that I can, so that it's pretty clear. A training max is a given weight that you're able to hit on that same day or that very day, which is not a PR, and it does not require a great deal of intensity or you getting like psyched up and getting this huge adrenaline rush, and I'll explain more. So the whole idea is to lift heavy so often that you acclimate to the given stimuli, autoregulation, and that eventually the task becomes so mundane, or I'm talking about lifting here, the task becomes so mundane you receive less of a stress response from your CNS, or at least in theory. And what I meant with that is I'm a firm believer that you can, like you train your muscles and your body to get stronger and get bigger, I'm a believer that you can train your CNS, your nervous system basically, to give you less of a fight or flight response. That response, when you grab the bar or you're underneath the bench or whatever, and you get that huge adrenaline rush, that you can control that over time. Not necessarily control it, but the whole thing behind autoregulation is adaptation. adapting to the stimulus or stimuli that you throw at the body. So in theory, getting less and less of a fight or flight response through increased frequency, as you're also doing your training max. And I'll explain it a little bit more. As I have here, lifting while remaining calm is very crucial. Of course, unless you're going for PR. And that there at the bottom, I hinted to this earlier, that varying intensity levels is key to making this work long term. Otherwise, you will drive yourself into the ground if you do not lift calm and you do not vary your intensity levels. I am telling you, bury yourself into the ground. So the Longtail strategy, this is basically just a power law distribution graph, or a power law graph. And I tried to, I guess, add some stuff on there a little bit. So at the top there, you have like a peak per se, which would be a PR. And then towards the bottom there, where you see where it's coming into a tail, most of your workouts are going to be average, hence the long tail. This is where most of your workouts are going to be. And the beauty with this is I only lift 4 days a week currently. I'm thinking about upping that frequency even more, but I wanted to start out kind of small because I've only been doing this since about July or August. So I kind of lost my train of thought there for a moment. So since I squat 4 days a week, 1 day is front squat, the other 3 are back squat. I bench 3 times a week, and I only deadlift once a week. And I actually recently hit a PR in deadlift, only training it once a week. The thought process behind that is you can't be good at everything all at once. So I decided to stick with squat and bench right now, since my deadlift is pretty decent anyways. At least for how long I've been kind of strength training, I guess. So it doesn't matter, and I'll get into this whole average thing. Most of the workouts, like as I've said before, are going to be average, but it doesn't matter if you have a bad, quote-unquote, bad day squatting or benching, because guess what? The very next day, what are you going to be doing? Benching and squatting. So it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things if you have necessarily a bad day. And I want to get across that how you feel is a lie. How you feel before you go into the gym is a lie. How you feel like when you're warming up and you're actually getting in your working sets, that's actually pretty accurate. But how you feel just walking into the gym is a lie. That doesn't, you feel like crap. That's not a good determinant of performance in the gym. It's like soreness is not a good determinant for whether it was a good workout or not. The same principle applies here, that how you feel is not a good indicator of performance before you start actually lifting. But yeah, as I said here, you're going to have your PRs, which are going to be your peaks, and most of your workouts are going to be average, hence the long tail. That's where most of your stuff is going to be at. And that's not to say that you're not going to hit a PR in the long tail per se, but it's just that most of your workouts are going to be average, which is perfectly okay, because the very next day, guess what? You're going to be doing the same dang thing, so it doesn't really matter. So don't freak out if you have an off day. Everybody has them. I have them all the time. So I kind of wanted to explain the long tail strategy a little bit more, because in all reality, it's not really a lifting principle, although you can apply it to that. But in statistics, a long tail of some distributions of numbers is the portion of the distribution having a large number of occurrences far from the head, the long tail, or central part of the distribution. So a tidbit on overtraining and overreaching. If you have a question about anything, or you feel like I didn't explain something well enough, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try to answer as best that I am able to, or as best that I can. So overtraining, a physical, behavioral, and emotional condition that occurs when the volume and intensity of an individual's exercise exceeds their recovery capacity long term. Key part of that is long term. So overreaching is the exact same thing, however, it's only short term or acute, whereas overtraining is chronic. With overreaching, any decently programmed thing that's catered towards powerlifting or strength training in general, you're going to have periods or blocks per se, if you're into periodization, of overreaching, because then after that you have super compensation. However, the key with overtraining there is long term. That's not okay because, as I said in the beginning, with varying intensity levels, you will bury yourself in the ground if you don't learn to control. You know, if you go into the gym all hyped up and all jacked, and you're trying to lift with that frequency and that amount of volume, you will bury yourself in the ground. I'm telling you, I've tried it, I've done it before. It just doesn't end well. You're lethargic. You don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to do anything. The last thing you want to do is train or even think about it. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to go over like a brief thing on that. Okay, I was thinking of something, so I'll just kind of continue here. Um, I just wanted to give like a kind of a brief template, and I only did one day. It's on the next slide, but this is just based off of what I'm doing currently, but things are subject to change here. Training days for me would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So as I said earlier, I'm benching 3 times a week. I'm squatting 4 times a week. Once it's front squat, and I'm only deadlifting once. Um, so yeah, this is kind of sort of what it would look like. So like my main movements on Monday are going to be bench and squat with an emphasis on the upper body. I kind of do like big 3, and then I kind of split it up into upper lower basically. So I would do bench and squat on Monday. First I would do my 5-minute dynamic warm up. I just always do that. Then depending on what's open, I'll go either into bench or squat. We only have one squat rack with an actual power rack. And we have 2 benches, but they're not Olympic, and they actually, when you load up a decent amount of weight on there, the benches will actually move, which is kind of frustrating at times. But yeah, you got to work with what you have. So I kind of listed on here. Basically, with bench, 275 for me is generally my training max. That's not always the case. There are days when I'm really feeling it, and I'll go heavier than that for singles. Um, it really just depends. 275 is usually my test for bench. And that's me lifting very calm. I'm not all jacked up. I don't need a spotter with that. I don't, I guess, get really an adrenaline response from that. I just kind of lift it, see how I feel. Some days I'll do doubles with it. It just really depends. So like moving on to squat, 365 for me is roughly 70% of my 1 rep max. And that's not a training max for me. That's just, like I said, I like to have test weights. So 365 is usually a pretty good test of how I want to set up my training max for squats. And recently, in the past few weeks, I've had an issue with my right patella. So that kind of sidelined me with squats. I hit a PR in front squats at 375 pounds. And the day before that, I hit a PR in back squat of 455 pounds, that is. And yeah, I don't know, I felt something tweak when I was front squatting. And me being ignorant, I just kind of kept going on with the workout. And yeah, then I tried rushing back into things with testing at 365, and it didn't work out. So moral of the story, if you get injured, you need to be realistic with yourself and set aside enough time to allow it to heal. And I'm not saying don't do anything, or don't be stupid with it, basically. Allow yourself the time to heal. It's not necessarily, oh, well, you just need to completely stop training. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm a firm believer in still going through motor patterns and whatnot, but you need to be realistic in the amount of resistance that you're trying to move through space if you get injured, or you feel something's not quite right. But yeah, as I was saying before, the 365 is usually my test weight, and basically my training maxes for squat right now, well, not right now, but in the past, have been anywhere from 405 to 425. It just kind of depended. It just kind of depends how I was really feeling. You know, some days it was only 385. 385 it felt like it was 455 some days. And some days it was even less than that. It just kind of depends. But the beautiful thing is, the next day you're going in and you're doing the exact same thing. And the whole thing with autoregulation is that, I don't know, it kind of turned my whole theory, or what I thought I knew about overtraining, upside down basically. Um, I'm telling you that you're able to do a whole lot more if you can get acclimated to the amount of frequency and volume. Um, if you can get acclimated to that, and the higher load, basically with your 1 rep max, the higher percentage that is. If you can get acclimated to that, for me, it took about 2 to 3 weeks really to settle into it before I felt comfortable, and I wasn't freaking out when I was doing my training maxes. Like, am I gonna get this? Am I gonna get this? And that's a whole nother issue. If you put weight on the bar, whatever you're doing, and if you second guess yourself, or if you have any doubt, and this is specifically like with even a PR per se, but this is with training maxes too, most definitely. If you have any doubt about moving the weight without a spotter, you need to go down. And that's for training maxes, and maybe not with more so with the PR, because you're probably going to have a spotter. But for a training max, absolutely. If you have any doubt in your mind that you can't do it without a spotter, it might be in your best interest to go down in weight. Just because, as I said, varying intensity with autoregulation and however you set it up is very important. So yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to leave them below. I know I kind of ran through that fast, and this video is probably going on 15 to 20 minutes, and I did kind of go through that a little faster than I would have liked to, but yeah, have a nice day.